Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning, how to do everything website, all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to eat free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What are we doing live? It goes in eternity.
All right, let's get it going. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go! Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. It is 10 p.m. Thursday evening, and we are here live on Studio A. Yeah, you've waited all week for the most cutting-edge topics and guests, and now it is time to deliver. That's right, it's the Stephen D. Kelley Show with your host, Stephen D. Kelley.
Hey everybody, happy Thursday night. Welcome to another edition of the Stephen D. Kelley Show. I'm your host, Stephen D. Kelley. We're going to have a really good show tonight, big night tonight. Before I get started, I want to remind everybody that this is Revolution Radio is listener-supported radio. We do need your donations, and if you find your way to our homepage, if you're listening to this, there is a site support button where you can donate using PayPal or whatever means that you have. We do depend on your donations. We have 14 days left in this month, and it looks like we've got to come up with roughly $900. So that's not too bad. We're about halfway to our goal, and we really appreciate your support, and we do need it. I also want to remind everybody that we have a very active chat room. It's a great place to go if you are on the computer and listening to the show. It's very easy to just go into the chat room, register a screen name, lots of room in there for you, meet the people, and it's a great way to also pass on questions to myself or to my guests, because we do monitor the chat room. My producer, Sean, is watching it, and so am I. I also want to remind people that the Revolution Radio has a Facebook page that we really would like you to visit and hit the like button so that we can have you have advertisement, well, not advertising, but announcements for the various different shows could be seen on your Facebook page. So that's a great place to become more involved with what we're doing here on Revolution Radio. And there's a lot of other good things going on, but I want to get right into it with my guest. Now, a couple weeks ago, I had Courtney Brown on, who is a very well-known remote viewer from the Farsight Institute. And tonight, I have one of his colleagues, Dick Allgire. Dick, I hope I pronounced your name properly. Is that right, Allgire?
Close enough, Allgire, yeah. That's
Allgire, right. Okay. I want to say Allgire, but Allgire. Steve Travesty's been correcting me, but...
Yeah, my sister actually changed her name to Allgire just because people made that assumption. So she just went ahead and went with it. But it's Allgire, yeah.
All right, I'll do my best.
Or Allgire, depending on what part of the country you're from. No offense, that's fine.
All right. Yeah. But anyway, you are one of the dynamic duo. Besides Courtney, there's yourself and Daz. What's his name?
Daz Smith.
Daz Smith. Okay, so you, Dick and Daz, you guys are. It seems to me like you're the real muscle behind the effort. Most of the actual remote viewing was done by you two. Is that right?
We did all of the remote viewing. Yeah,
okay.
Courtney doesn't. As if you task a project, you cannot remote view it. You have to be blind. So Courtney is like forbidden from remote viewing his own project.
I see.
So
okay.
yeah, Daz and I did it.
Major protocols involved. All right. Well, needless to say, I'm very interested in the work you do, and I'd like to learn more about it. And I know a lot of our listeners are also very interested. This is the sort of thing that we talk about a lot. I do cover quite a bit of subjects in the metaphysics area, and I like to think that remote viewing is kind of a Zen thing. There really is quite a bit of spirituality and mental preparation involved. So I guess before we get into some of your stories and your background, perhaps you could tell us, we could start off by having you kind of describe for the listeners what exactly is remote viewing and how does one become able to do this?
Yeah, let me start by, you mentioned the spirituality of remote viewing, and that's interesting because the way I came to remote viewing was by way of a Special Forces Intelligence Green Beret remote viewer who is probably the most conservative, right-wing, Republican-loving, patriotic American and quite a killer. I mean, just a stone cold. But one of the nicest guys I ever met, one of the most generous, giving people I've ever met. And what he taught me was not based in spirituality, but he said it's just a communication skill. But where I got to from that was a very spiritual place. So that's part of the story. How I got involved was I was a mainstream local television news reporter, an anchorman, reporter. By the way, I'm coming to you from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, and I have to rub that in a little bit because it's beautiful out here. I got up this morning, I swam a half mile in a beautiful turquoise lagoon, warm ocean water. So there.
Well, so there. Okay, we won't bring up Fukushima. I'm on the California coast, so I don't know who's got it worse right now. I'll tell you, Dick, I won't go in the ocean anymore.
I'm afraid that my days of going in the ocean are numbered. I have a good friend who's leaving Hawaii because for that very reason. He's moving as far away as possible, moving to Florida in 1 month. He believes it's going to hit here. So, yeah, that's a whole other topic. We can get into that. I have some information on that. But
okay.
So
anyway.
here I was back in the early, mid-1990s. Okay, I'm a TV reporter. I'm a news anchor, and I used to, at that time, I lived on the other side of the island on Windward, Oahu, and it was like a 25-minute drive to and from work over the beautiful Pali Highway or Liki Highway through a rainforest and the green mountains of Hawaii. And I would go to work in the afternoon, and on the way to work, I would listen to news radio, just constant, here's the news on the hour, just so I could know what was going on, and when I went to work, to have some idea of what we'd be talking about and what the news of the day was. So I'd leave that on. I'd go do my shift and anchor the news and report. And when I got off work at like 10:40, 11 o'clock at night, and I would drive home, on that radio was the Art Bell Show. All right. Can I say that name here? That's
of course. Okay. Art Bell is okay. Yeah. George Noory, on the other hand, I'd scoff at, but Art Bell, he's an okay.
I used to listen to Art Bell all the time, and I don't really listen to George Noory that much. I don't listen to much. Frankly, I don't listen to too much that has advertisements in it. I download talk radio shows off the internet onto my iPod or my iPhone, and then I just play them through my car without commercials. I don't watch TV much. So anyway, yeah, mainstream George Noory, that's okay.
Well, hopefully, so anyway, I got to get you to be a fan of this show then.
Yeah.
Okay, please continue.
So I'm driving home, and I hear this. Art Bell is like interviewing this guy, John Mack, the professor from Harvard, that did a book on people being abducted by aliens. I mean, come on. But this guy is a Harvard professor, and he's really intelligent, and he didn't sound crazy. And I just listened to that. I thought, this guy's kind of making a case for this. And so I kind of got caught up in the show and started listening. And then I eventually heard Courtney Brown, who wrote a book about remote viewing. And I thought, if that's true, I've got to know about that. I want to know about that. And Courtney taught a course back in the day in Atlanta, and I went and took the course. It cost quite a bit of money. My wife let me spend it, and went and did the in-house course with Courtney Brown at Farsight Institute. And it was really interesting. I did not come home a proficient remote viewer, but I saw the possibilities at that point. So I came home and kind of got involved in the early internet with some of that and mentioned that I'd done that. And somebody sent me an email and said, hey, there's a military remote viewer here that is going to be giving an introductory lecture and teaching a class in Hawaii. I said, Ed Dames? No, not Ed Dames. This guy's name is Glenn Wheaton. I've never heard of him. So I went to his introductory lecture, and it was free. And he sounded very credible. I mean, it was really interesting, this unmistakable military bearing and just this radiated that this was real. I mean, veracity just came out of him. And he said, well, we're going to teach this class, and there's no real charge. You can pay for paper and pens, and you can come here and set up, and we'll do that if you want to sign up. So I signed up, and I started learning from him. And he formed the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild. And I've been training with him since 1997, nonstop. And I've paid him no money. So that's, I'll tell you an interesting story about how he got involved. You want to hear this one? This guy, Glenn Wheaton?
Sure.
Glenn was in the U.S. Army, and he was stationed at a military base, Army Security Agency listening base in Augsburg, Germany, listening to high-speed Morse intercept. So he listened to Morse code between the Russians, and he would copy that down. One night he was listening to Morse code, and as he listened to Vladivostok getting a message from Moscow, the guy in Vladivostok wasn't very good at Morse code, and he said, oh, send that again, I didn't get it. Glenn had gotten it. He's sitting in his cubicle at this secret base in Germany, and he fell asleep while he was listening to the Morse code. And just in that moment before he fell asleep, in that area between being asleep and awake, he saw the Russian tapping the Morse code on his key. And his supervisor said, hey, wake up. He came to, and he said, oh, I just saw the person sending the code. And they said, no, don't tell us that. You're relieved of duty. And they sent him to a psychologist. Well, it turned out that Morse code operators had been having this experience for quite some time, and the military was aware of it. And I don't know this for sure, but I think they might have been looking for it. It's still not discussed much. At that time, it was very classified. And so, because he had this event, they pegged him to become a remote viewer, and he trained with the Army and then went into Special Forces Intelligence and did that for 22 years. So when he came out and retired and remote viewing was declassified and he was able to talk about it without being sent into prison, he started teaching us. So that's how I got involved.
Hey, Dick, just real quick, to interrupt you for just a moment. Do you have any military experience yourself?
No, I don't. No, okay. I was
Okay.
never in the military.
All right. Okay. Yeah, please continue.
Okay. And I'm in the chat room also, so I'm watching some of those some of those questions, and we can get to those, like somebody's asking about Earth change predictions and that type of thing. We'll have plenty of time. We can get into that tonight.
Yeah. We'll devote the second hour of the show to answering all the questions.
So here I went to the first class, and it was interesting. It was part of it was, there'd be like 16 of us in the class, and we'd meet every Friday night for 3 or 4 hours, and we'd work targets. And little by little, you get to see that this works. And the way it was set up was my teacher never made any claims like, oh, we'll teach you how to do this. We'll teach you how to find your true path in life and your future greatness. He just said, this is a communication skill. This is how you do it. You sit down, you do this, this, and this, these steps. And he let us prove it to ourselves. So it just was so interesting, and I did a few sessions and got a few hits, rudimentary, and took it to the next level and the next level and the next level, and eventually I just decided to think, well, how far can I take this? Just a decade went by, and I became pretty advanced. I've spent, I don't know how many hours, a lot of time and effort. I've done thousands of sessions. So I've become fairly proficient just by sheer tenacity, I think. I don't believe I have any great inherent gift better than anyone else. I think everyone has an ability to do this, but I've just been very tenacious at it. Studied it long and hard and done a lot of sessions and had a great teacher and worked with some really good people. We have the lucky thing we have here in Hawaii is that our teacher, Glenn Wheaton, didn't do it for money and didn't ever say, well, we're going to do this for a 1-month class or 2-month class. He just said, if you want to learn more, come. And some people kept coming, and we kept working, and he kept teaching us. So it's been an ongoing thing. Uh-huh. And it is the most interesting thing I've ever been involved with. Are you married? Yes, I am. Do you have family and all that? What does your family think about all this? Are they skeptical, or do they embrace it, or do they give you all that support, or do you feel like you're kind of an island sometimes? They support me. I have sisters. I don't have children. My parents are passed away. I have sisters on the mainland, and they think it's interesting. My wife is Korean American. She was born in Korea, and she's a very intelligent, strong-willed woman, but she's very traditional in that Koreans believe that the man is the man and the woman is the woman. Not that the man is above the woman. They're equal, but man is the man, and he's kind of like what he wants to do, you support him. So she supported it, and I don't know if she was skeptical or not. She said, if it makes you happy, do it. But over the years, she has seen enough that, she'll be in doing something else, and I'll be in my little office, and I'll do a remote viewing target for 2 hours. And she'll see me walk out a little bit, dazed and bleary-eyed with 20 pages of session work, and I'll show it to her. I'll go, I don't know what this was, but look what I drew. And she'll know that I did it blind. She'll see the work. And then 2 months later, a day later when we get feedback, I'll say, hey, remember that I showed you? And then I'll show her what the target was, and oh, wow. So she's seen enough of my performance that now she believes it. I don't think she understands it. She just like, oh, okay, that's the thing you do. All right, have fun. So she's supportive. You've always been kind of working on the side of the powers that be, so to speak. You haven't really found yourself on the other side, so you haven't been kind of a target. You guys are kind of got nothing to worry about, nothing that would be going on that would concern her, right? No. Remote viewing is destabilizing. I don't know any remote viewers that haven't gone a little bit weird at times. It's just the nature of the thing. And let me explain that. I worked a target that was operational. I didn't know what it was. I was given like D9, F4, C3, Q1. Worked that target. So I went in and I did a long session and went into like experiential stuff, and I saw this plane crash into a mountainside. Like, whoa, wow, this plane crash. And I got this sense of just horrid tragedy and death, destruction, and this awful thing. And I thought it stays with you after you work a session. Part of your brain is still there, and it bubbles up into your consciousness. So I went down and laid next to my wife. She was watching TV, and I was like just kind of laid there next to her. And I just started crying. I was sobbing. She goes, "What? You're still there, aren't you?" I said, "They all died. All these people on this plane just died." And she kind of hugged me and said, "It's okay." And then I came back, and I was all right. So when it's very important to have remote viewers that can socialize together, talk to each other, do things that are not remote viewing related, go to dinner, go have a couple drinks, have a brunch, talk about other things, just to keep yourself grounded. Like, don't think don't get too caught up in it. If you do a really good session, some people tend to feel like, hey, I'm special, I'm Nostradamus, I'm omniscient. And there are times when it doesn't work and you're not so good and you get frustrated, like, oh, why can't I do this? I could do that and I've lost the skill. And you need other people that are remote viewers to keep you grounded and kind of on the straight and narrow. So we're lucky in Hawaii that we've had a number of people on this same island that have been studying this and keeping each other grounded, and we've developed friendships. And along the way, as we have those little episodes, we bring people back and we reground them.
I got to ask you, Dick, this grounding issue is kind of familiar for me because I know a lot of people that get exposed to some of the deep, dark secrets out there. They tend to become alcoholics and such. And I'm just kind of curious if you have I hate to use the word religion or religious background, but do you have a spirituality that kind of acts as an anchor for you? Are you Christian or anything like that?
Well, I was raised a Christian Scientist. I would call myself more spiritual than religious. My wife is Buddhist. And the Buddhist countries that I've visited, if I was going to visit or live in a country, I think I would like a Buddhist country. I like their, just the way they treat people nicely just for the sake of treating them nicely. I've done well with Buddhist countries. In terms of spirituality, I came to a realization of spirituality from remote viewing, and here's the way I did that. It was one of the first targets where I ever had really stunning target contact. And I was working a practice target. And I didn't know what it was. It was called a beaconing target. Someone had gone somewhere and they visited a location and they said, okay, this target is F777. Look at where I went. Okay, could have been anything, anywhere. So I'm working this target. And I see like I get a building and it's cold and someone walks in a building and I got this sense of a smell of when you have a jacket that's out in very frigid cold weather and you walk inside, you can kind of smell the cold on it, which is an interesting smell that you don't get in Hawaii, but I recalled that from when I used to live in Utah. So I'm getting sensory input about this target. And I said, oh, seems to be a person there, and he's inside, and he went up like some stairs or escalator or something. And I'm about 45 minutes into the session, and I did this. I'm not going to describe exactly what I did, but it's a breathing exercise. It's a cool down thing, and it's a mental exercise to put you in a very calm state where you can look at the target. And I did this breathing things that it's almost meditative, and my breath calmed, and I came to a complete stop, and I saw this little movie play out, and it was a guy in a gray overcoat walking through like a department store, looking at men's suits, and there were shirts on racks, like, in cellophane, folded up and put in little cubicles. And I looked at it from as if I were a security camera, kind of a high angle looking down. It was dim and not real clear, jerky, but it was like a little movie or dream. And I thought, what was that? And I kind of came out of it, started breathing regularly again, and I thought, wow, that was weird. What the heck was that? So I drew it, and I was done with the session, and I thought, if this is some guy in like a department store, that'll be, oh man, I'll be amazed, because that's what I saw. So I went to the computer, and I was able to get feedback, and it said, I was at a military PX in Germany, and I went into the second floor, and it was like a men's department where they were selling men's clothing. I was walking through, and I just went, oh my God. The hair on my arm stood up. I got chills. My knees buckled. I thought, oh my God, I saw that. And I called my teacher and said, I just saw it. He said, oh, calm down. How you doing? But that experience made me realize that everything we do lingers, that there's a record of it. That every lie you tell, every time you treat someone badly, every time you treat someone nicely, every thought you think matters and resonates. And that took me to a spirituality of like, as I live my life, you don't just do it in secret and it doesn't exist anymore. It still exists and can be accessed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of came to spirituality. And, there's got to be more to us than our physical body if we're able to remote view. Just seems that's got to be the case.
Well, so much of this stuff is devoted to helping the military, for spying purposes or some sort of intelligence gathering. Does that seem like that's, aside from the pyramid projects and the Atlantis work you did and some of these other crucifixion thing you did, is most of the majority of what you're doing involving military targets?
No, we don't do any military targets. I didn't do the crucifixion target. That was Daz Smith only. The way I've been trained is that we mostly at the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild do validation targets. That is simple targets that can, that the ground truth, so you can verify the work. We try to do mostly that, just to prove the skill. I mean, that in itself is quite a feat. If you have, let me think of a target. If I target the San Francisco Bay Bridge, and I give that to a viewer, I mean, you can, if they draw a bridge in the waterway and the cars are going across it, they've got that. So you need that. We don't, we don't generally do targets like the pyramid, the Atlantis, the latest UFO sighting, what we call esoteric targets. We try to stay more on grounded earthly targets. And as for military, I suspect that I might have done some targets for the military along the way without knowing it, just because my teacher is, I think once you're in that business, he's retired, but I've done a few targets for which I didn't get feedback. Like I'll hand in the work and he'll say, good job. Like, what was it? Can I see the feedback? No. Will I ever see it? No. Don't ask. Like, oh, did I do all right? Yeah, you did okay. So, but we are not affiliated with the military, and I'm not consciously working for the.
Well, Courtney said that you guys have military people on your board of directors who seem to be in some sort of power to yes or no for projects.
Well, that's the Farsight Institute. That's Courtney's nonprofit institute. And he had Lynn Buchanan and Glenn Wheaton. Lynn Buchanan was part of one Army remote viewing program, and Glenn Wheaton was part of a Special Forces remote viewing program. So they were on the board of directors. They had veto power over the type of projects. They've moved on. They're kind of emeritus board members now, and I'm a board member, and there's another woman that's a board member. So, and we're both not involved with the military. So here's the distinction. Remote viewing has now moved into we have second, third, and fourth generation viewers who were not involved in the military. So when remote viewing went public back in 1995, 96, and 97, all the remote viewers had been in the military and part of various military programs. They have now taught students, and their students have taught students. So we have capable remote viewers like myself and Daz Smith who have never been affiliated or trained by the military, and no connection, and we don't do military targets.
Well, I've been trying to recruit remote viewers to go visit some of these underground bases, and that seemed to be something that Courtney was not too enthusiastic about. And he said that basically you need to be able to see it before you can actually do that.
Well, I'll tell you a real interesting story about a underground base. And let me look on the internet while I'm telling you. I think you can see the project. We had a group of operational viewers at the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild, and this was back in our heyday, about 1999 or the year 2000. I can't remember exactly when we did this project. We called it Project Erminmink. And we looked at an underground base in Russia at Yamantau Mountain, I think is what it was. Let me look this up. I was one of the viewers on that. This was not supervised by Glenn Wheaton. It was only students. And we did I did 3 or 4 or 5 sessions, and of course I had no idea what it was. And some of our best viewers worked sessions on this, and it turned out to be this underground base that the Russians have. And according to Glenn, we did intelligence grade work. He said this was as good as the military could do. We did astounding work. We actually heard from apparently some Russian people got a hold of people at our group and said, you need to take some of this down. And we were warned. They said, we will take legal action against you, and if that doesn't work, we'll take what other action is necessary, like a veiled threat. So we did do an underground base target. It was really interesting. I'm trying to find it.
Hey, a couple of people have been in chat have been asking about these coordinates. You gave these numbers like D777. What is that? Is that a coordinate, a vector? What is that?
Okay, I'll explain how that works. When a remote viewer does a target, in order for it to be legitimate remote viewing, it has to be completely blind. You can't say, hey, I want you to remote view Disneyland, okay. You gotta give it to them in total secret so that the conscious mind has no idea what it is. Back in the early days of one of the military projects, they used to give the longitude and latitude numbers, like longitude 20.34, latitude 347, 23 or whatever. That was a geographical coordinate. And then they thought, well, maybe that isn't really fair, because if someone was really smart, they could have an eidetic memory, or they could know that, well, that latitude is a north area, it might be mountainous and icy. And they eventually realized that you could generate random letters or numbers. So let's say that I am going to target the Bay Bridge in Oakland as a target. I take a photograph of that, and I know in my consciousness and my understanding that the Bay Bridge is the target. And you look at it like the time the picture was taken, or right now, or 10 years ago, or during the earthquake, whenever. You need a way to give that to the viewer so he doesn't have any idea what it is. So what we do is we generate what's called a target ID. And I go to I have an app on my smartphone, or you can go to random.org, you can go to random letters on the internet, or you can type in random letters and numbers. So what we'll do is we'll go generate two sets of 4, like A, B, C, D, -E, F, G, H. That wouldn't be a very good one, but just something that's completely random that has no other meaning. That becomes the address of the target. So you, as the targeteer or tasker, you make a conscious connection between that in consciousness. You create that address. You say A1, B2, C3, D4 is the Bay Bridge in San Francisco, California at this time, and you affix that to that. And then you can say to the viewer, just view this, A1, B2, C3, D4. That's used
so you
for
assign, you assign an intention to these numbers.
It requires human intent.
Right.
That's where I disagree a little bit with Courtney. Courtney believes that you can have it selected by a computer program, or have the stock market somehow make the association. And I believe it works better if you have actual human consciousness and intent to make the connection. Okay. So.
Wow, that's really interesting. Okay, I hope you guys listening got that. That's a pretty important little piece of information. But we talk about intention quite a bit in metaphysics, especially with, I referenced Dr. Emoto's work. In fact, I would think that you'd be kind of interested in Dr. Emoto a little bit, huh, Dick?
Who's Dr. Emoto?
Oh, that's the water guy. He's the guy that did the experiments with the water.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Good stuff.
There are some other Japanese researchers that we've been involved with that did other interesting things. Yeah, the water guy. That's interesting stuff. Those are great pictures.
Well, tell us some more stories, Dick. Before we got about 20 minutes before the break comes up, and tell us a little bit more, and then I'm going to go ahead and announce the call-in number and all that sort of thing.
I'll tell you how I did the Pyramid project, which is Courtney's latest movie that he has out. In 2013, Courtney contacted me and said, I want to do a project. Will you take part? Will you remote view some targets? I said, sure. He goes, okay. This is project 7. Your first target is 7A. Sit down and work a target. That's all I was told. I was told that by email. So I got an email saying, work target 7. 7A. So I generated my own target ID. I can't remember what it was. It was like MYS 7A, something like that. I sat down. So I do my little thing. I focus my attention and go through the protocols. I kind of quiet myself down, listen to some theta music, and I start looking at and exploring 7A. So I did 20 pages of session work and sent it to Courtney by email. And he said, okay, you're done with 7A. Go to 7B. I didn't have any communication with Daz Smith. Daz Smith is in England. I've never met him. Never talked with him in person, even on Skype or phone. I've emailed with him rarely. So Daz is working that in England. I'm working it in Hawaii. I sent in my work for 7A, and Courtney said, go to 7B. Okay, so I generate a target ID, and I do the same thing, and that's how that work progressed. 7A, B, C, D, and E. Never told anything, never given any feedback, never said this is historical, never said this is, certainly not the pyramids, just 7A, 7B. I sent in my work. At some point, Courtney said, that 7C is, can you do some more work on that live? I said, okay. I got a whiteboard, and I set up a camera, a high-def camera, 2 high-def cameras, actually, and I did my thing. I cooled down, and I took a dry erase marker, and I started doing more work on 7C. And so I'm going to look at land. I close my eyes, and this is on the video. I go, well, I'm looking at this land gestalt, and I see a pyramid. Okay, so I draw the pyramid. And I've done so much work, and when you're remote viewing, it's not like putting a videotape in and you get a clear picture of everything. It's just these little flashes and these little misty, hazy, blurred, partial images. It's like if you were, going to look at the Woodstock movie, you'd fast forward in 20 minutes and then look at one frame for 2 seconds on way out of focus, and go, oh, it looked like there were a lot of people there, and you draw that. So you're never really conscious. You just go with what you get. You work quickly. You don't think about it. You just put it down and keep going on forward. So I'm saying, I see this pyramid. I said, but it doesn't look like the pyramids. It looks new, it looks shiny to me. It looks like metallic, and there's energy coming off this thing like a light show. I look again. I go, man, there's all these people there having it looks like almost like a rock concert, like it reminds me of a Grateful Dead concert light show or something. Like there's lights and there's this big pyramid type structure, and but all these people there in this celebration. And then I said, well, let me look at this again. So I keep going. I go, let me look back farther. I kind of adjust my perspective and close my eyes and look. I said, well, I keep seeing these pyramid shapes again. So there's a couple of these, but wow, there's this beautiful architectural, like this plaza that's well groomed and manicured with walkways and just really beautiful ornamental designs, and everything is polished. And I go, this isn't like, it seems to be pyramids, but it's not pyramids. I said that you can hear me saying this live on the video. It's like this is the pyramids, but it's not the pyramids because it's like when they were brand new. Like there's this celebration here of these just completed, and I did a bunch of other sessions that were collateral to that. I said, well, this time like 7B or 7D, I can't remember which one. This was over a year ago that I did it. I said, God, there's this, it looks like a mine. These guys going down in a mine, and this air is just dusty, and they're like mining these rocks for some reason, but they're doing it. It's really high tech. It's high tech rock cutting, but it's a dirty job, and these guys are just these worker bee type doing this. So anyways, a lot of really interesting data that I got, pages and pages and pages of 5 different sessions. I had no idea. If you would ask me what it was, I don't know. Something looked like some new pyramids, but then there was mining, then there was this ceremony, and there were people doing this, and all these different sessions. And then Courtney said, you're done. All right. So I forgot about it. Months later, he gave me feedback and said, well, you're not going to believe this. Daz's work was done. I hadn't talked to Daz. I hadn't gotten any feedback. Nothing was told to me. And finally he gave me feedback. He said, your target was the Great Pyramid at Giza, how it was built, why it was built, what it was like when it was new. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of interesting. At that point, my participation in the project ended. And Courtney says, well, I'm going to make this video. It'll be coming out pretty soon. So a few months later, Courtney said, I've got this announcement. It's the most important announcement in the history of mankind. And I, Courtney, what's that about? He goes, no, don't worry. Let me handle it. I said, I hope this isn't to do with your project. He goes, just trust me. So I think it was marketing hype.
Yeah, hardcore.
Yeah. Okay. But the project itself, the remote viewing was solid. It was interesting, and I did see the pyramids when they were new. I honestly did. That was an interesting project.
Well, I agree though. It was hyped a little bit, and I was a little discouraged.
Oh, it was hyped a lot.
Well,
I mean, I don't believe that
kind,
was Daz and I both strenuously, vigorously objected when we found out what Courtney was doing. So we voiced our Daz wasn't going to work with him again, to be frank.
All right. Well, everything's gone back to normal. You're all friendly.
He promises not to do that again, and there's another project in the works, I think. We're not supposed to talk about. One thing remote viewers do is no target talk. Don't talk about whether projects are happening. It's like hush hush. Don't talk about it. Don't.
Sure.
It's got to all be done just like, okay, here's a target. Work it. Don't say anything. So there may be some. If we have a few minutes before the break, I have a video out. There's a Japanese remote viewer named Hitomi Akamatsu came to Hawaii and trained with the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild. I was one of her instructors. She's very talented. She did some really good work. And in the course of her training, I gave her a target that was the Higgs boson particle, that super collider where they made the elementary particle, the Large Hadron Collider. I gave her that as a target. And she did one of the most remarkable sessions I've ever seen. And I documented it on video, and I made a video about it called Hitomi and the God Particle. And people can see a trailer for that if they go to rvivideos.com. That's rvivideos.com. And there's some trailers, and they can watch that. But she really got into the consciousness of, she went down to the subatomic level and just explored consciousness. And it was mind-blowing for me to watch it. I just, whoa. So I documented that. That's my little video that I have out.
We're starting to get questions coming in from chat. And I'm asking these people. We're going to start passing these things on.
Oh, I'd love to answer them. That'll be fun.
Well, we'll hit a couple of them real quick. First one, guy here just asked me if you could tell us all who built the pyramids, or who directed the humans that built the pyramids.
Well, let me give you a caveat as I say this. All right. Because I was working, okay, here's my caveat. All remote viewing sessions are a combination of good data, bad data, and contamination. A viewer on one day can give you stunningly accurate data. The next day, they can make something up out of complete imagination and be totally off. Within a given session, some of the remote viewers' data will be good, some of it will be bad, and some of it will be good data, but it is contaminated by their own perspective. I did one of the sessions for Courtney, and I saw what looked to be a big bug-eyed alien, like a praying mantis type alien. And I'm not too into that kind of stuff, but I just drew what I saw. And I looked at that, and this bug-eyed alien just said, I got this thought of like, oh, aren't you talented that you can come see me? Aren't you? That's quite wow. That's quite a skill you have to perceive me. But this is not your business. Please stop. And this is a true story. I may make my own companion video. Courtney didn't put this in the video, but I had 2 video cameras rolling, 2 independent videos with their own SD cards, their own power. They were not connected in any way. And just as I drew on the board this alien and said, this alien seems to be saying this is not your business, both the cameras went and stopped. And I have the video where they both at the same time stopped. And when I finished in saying, well, this being seems to be telling me, like, that's quite a little trick you have to be able to pop in with me, but please, this is not your business. After I finished that, both the cameras went on again.
Wow, fascinating.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's a strange little anomaly. Now, okay, do I believe that aliens directed the building of the pyramids? I'm one viewer. Courtney feels that Daz corroborated that. I'm not so sure if he did. You have to do very structured analysis of remote viewing data by someone who's blind to the target, and Courtney doesn't do that. So I don't think you can definitively say that. I think I had an interesting session. I might have been BSing. I mean, not intentionally, but sometimes you get crazy things that aren't the target. Sometimes you do get the target. I'm not the person to ask. The full sessions are up at farsight.org, and there are some trailers for the video that you can watch for free. www.farsight.org. And
right,
the full sessions are in the video that you can buy on Vimeo. I try to not plug things too much. I mean, I've never been involved in like selling remote viewing or trying to make money off of it. I try to stay away from that. I don't teach for money. I don't do it for money. I try to just do it for a greater purpose.
Wonderful philosophy. I think that's wonderful. And the fact that you have a day job makes it all the much better. Okay, we're getting ready to take our break very soon, probably in about 5 minutes. But first of all, I want to give out the call-in number. For Studio A, the call-in number is area code 347-688-2902, and you can join us on Skype using the word Freedom Screen. And if you're connected to Sean or myself, we'll connect you and bring you in. So when we get back from break, please join us, and we'll be happy to direct your questions to Dick. So, all right, Dick. Someone else asked if you've ever explored underneath the pyramid.
Yeah, I was.
Or, I'm sorry, the Vatican.
Our class underneath the Sphinx.
Yeah.
Yeah, are there hidden things underneath there? I did that early on in my training. Glenn Wheaton, our military guy, gave us that as a target. I don't think I did a very good session. I can't remember it. It's in the files somewhere. I could look that up. We didn't gain any, there's this Vastora house of hidden knowledge. I can't say that's what we got. I don't know if we got chambers. I've done so many, that was like 12, 15 years ago I did that. So I couldn't speak definitively about that.
All right. Well, good enough. I really didn't expect that you would have, but, obviously this is a question that comes up a lot. A lot of people out there seem to think that the Vatican is the center of all evil on this world. So, I would point in other directions. Before the music comes up, is there anything else that you want to talk about real quick before we start taking calls?
No, just the fact that, I just want to stress that I am if you can call being a mainstream reporter reputable. You know, I have a day job for all this time. We don't charge for training. I don't ever say, hey, I'm going to give you a seminar for $2,499 that'll show you your true path in life. Come give me the money, and in one weekend I'll teach you how to remote view. I don't believe you can learn how to remote view in a week. It'd be like, okay, I'm going to teach you piano lessons. In one weekend you could go da 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 da. That's about what you can learn in a week. And same with remote viewing. You might be able to draw a shape or something that somewhat describes the target, but to get very good at it, it takes a lot of work. And if you paid someone, you know, $20 an hour, you'd be paying you'd be paying a lot of money to get the training you need. So
there's a lot of groups on meetup.com, remote viewer meetup groups. Are you familiar with any of those?
I haven't interacted with them too much. No.
All right. Well, if just real quick, again, before the music starts, do you have any advice for people that want to, you know, obviously people who aren't in Hawaii that might want to explore this a little bit? There it is. Okay.
Let me think about that.
Yeah, go ahead and mute. We'll be right back after this music. Everybody stick around, and you can call us back as soon as we're back from break.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The finder of lost children and missing persons, Monique Lassan, surveilling civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Wednesday evening on Revolution Radio, come join our very own investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her private X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private X-Files, every Wednesday from 10 to midnight Eastern, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. What is your destiny to find the golden child?
Listen in to Journeys with JP, Tuesdays on Revolution Radio at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. With a variety of guests, each giving their unique perspective on their journey through to the now. Journeys offers you, the listener, a chance to share that perspective. Join me, JP, on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, simulcast with Wolf Spirit Radio.
Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leap the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, Studio B.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Hey folks, Captain Nighthawk here. Do you have a favorite host? Well, imagine if you will having all the broadcast shows from 2013 to listen to anytime you want. Awesome deal, huh? Anyway, so stop by freedomslips.com and order the entire 2013 library of your favorite host for just $30. Not only do you help with the station funding to keep us on the air, you also help the host because they get half of the net on every order. Also, we have Revolution Radio's all-time favorite shows all on one disc. The details are really broad, so you'll have to visit the website and go look at the details yourself. It's, again, www.freedomslips.com/season2013.htm. And get your favorites. First come, first serve, 7 to 2. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Including me. Later.
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all!
Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the second half of the Stephen D. Kelley Show. Sorry, I have to do that every time I hear that music. We have a very good guest here tonight. Dick Allgire is here with us of the Farsight Institute, and we're going to get back to him real quick. And I want to remind everybody, as this is the second half of the show, you are welcome to call in and talk to our guests. The call-in number is 347-688-2902, and you can also Skype to us using the word Freedom Screen. All right. I want to remind everybody again, we are listener-supported radio. We do need your support. There's a lot of ways you can support the station. Nighthawk has a great deal right now. You can buy your favorite host's season, 2013 season, for $30. That's about 180 hours of programming on a CD-ROM, or not a CD-ROM, but a DVD disc in MP3 format. And the nice thing about that is that he shares that with us. So you're supporting the station and also showing your favorite host love. So I'm kind of anxious to see how many people are enjoying this show and sign up to get a hold of those. He also has a deal, a seed pack, 35,000 seeds, 34 varieties or something like that, $100. Excellent deal if you're into gardening and you want to grow non-GMO organic food. That's certainly a good deal, a good way to get a good product and help out the station. Again, our chat room is very important. I want people to visit our chat room. I want people to go to our Facebook page and hit the like button. I want to also tell people that immediately following this show tonight, I am going to be joining Major Tom on his program, which is Ground Control with Major Tom. And tonight we are having a special guest, two special guests actually. Gabby and Mahmoud, our friends from Syria, are going to come in, and they're going to give us an update on the situation over there in Syria. And that's always a very important show, and I'm looking forward to it. So I hope that you will stick around. That is in Studio A. So after the show here with myself and Dick, please stick around for Ground Control with Major Tom and myself and Gabby and Mahmoud from Syria. All right, so hope you all stick around and do that. We have our first caller, area code 425. What is your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Brian from the state of Washington. How are you?
Hey, Brian. I'm doing great. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. I'm happy to talk to you. To hear you speak, I thought, oh, well, here's someone that sounds like an intelligent person who's making an attempt to be honest in a slight fashion, and possibly could have a conversation with me about the topics I'm interested in. So I was quite happy to hear this. So anyway, some questions about just a thing. You're talking about remote viewing and remote viewing targets, and I am one. And it's like this. It's pretty obvious because I mean, the things that get reflected back to me on these media operations are so blatant, So I don't see why people say it's hush hush because it's so obvious, But the things I notice is that when you're talking about things being made up or things being invented, do you think? Let me ask you this question: do you know how, let's say, when let's say the FBI just COINTELPRO, right, to try to smear or discredit targets or to blackmail or entrap? Do you think that happens also in the psychic world? Do you think that happens also, let's say, in the world of remote, of what you're talking about as well?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Dick, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we were actually going to try to, well, I've done some work on that. I tell you that I've worked for 15, 16 years with my trainer, who was a top military guy. It doesn't take 15 years to learn just to remote view. I mean, I learned that quite a while ago. So we're moving on to other deeper things. There's a technique called masking and entrainment. Yeah. You can mask a target. I just gave two viewers, I wanted to know whether Flight 370 crashed into the ocean or is still intact in a hangar being repainted somewhere. But I didn't want to...
Sorry.
You can mask that. You can mask a target. We were going to try to do an experiment where we would give a bunch of viewers a target and see if we could mask it so none of them could hit the target. Could we shunt them off psychically? So that is both possible, and I think I don't know how. It's not easy. Theoretically, it's possible. It would be very difficult. But
okay, this is you want my opinion on you want my opinion on what you're talking about?
Well, let me add something.
Okay,
right, let me add something here, Dick. This is for you also. We did okay. I'm well known for going public with the news about the big giant base underneath the Getty Museum out here in L.A. area, and one of the things that the remote viewer reported upon going down the various different levels, one of the first levels down, she ran into what she described as 200 Nazi psychics, and we were under the impression that those psychics were there to prevent or to try to disrupt the ability of remote viewers to go down there and see what was going on.
Well, they might not have been physically located there. They might have been, okay. You could, let me put it this way. You could have 200 remote viewers. Let's say you had 200 remote viewers. They could be, at various places around the globe, and at various times, they could be given their job would be to mask that location, to shield it. to put up a kind of a barrier. It would just like shunt somebody off. They wouldn't need to be physically located in that underground base. They could be somewhere else and just periodically do that. Just maintain it in their consciousness. I made up a target one time. I made up a place that didn't exist. It was called Tanner Dam. I made a dam, a man-made dam with a reservoir. I populated it with people. I told the dimensions, the sailboats that were there, the people that fished, the little town that was below it. I made this up. I made up all these details, and I spent 6 months imagining this place. I went and described it to an artist. I paid an artist to draw a picture of it, and I gave that to remote viewers, and they successfully viewed it, all of them. And it doesn't exist. It only existed in my consciousness. So when you start getting into consciousness, it's a slippery place, and it's a realm that we don't fully understand, and a lot of strange things happen in there.
So that's kind of like saying that.
Okay, can I get? Okay,
go ahead.
I was trying to. Okay, I was trying to discuss this one topic about Flight 370. Can I get that in, or are you trying to divert me away from that?
Go for it.
Okay. The question was, where is it? You can cloak things, you can mask things. Okay, and I know there's a person. It's like, I left my office and I put I hung up a picture. Oh, here's my picture. I'm not here. It's just a picture. That kind of thing happens. It's pretty obvious when you're being deceived, you're being misled, and it's like, just be honest. There's no danger. It's just, stop fooling around, But that's the issue that's a person. But the issue about Flight 370 is you can cloak something, you can say, you can do all this stuff, but you can't take away someone's memory. It's like, oh yes, I remember what happened to Flight 370. I believe it was taken up, sucked up off through some hole off the planet. I'm pretty sure that's what I remember. And other things happened in conjunction with that I know about too. All around the same time in the same space. It's a weird glitch. That kind of a universal cosmic glitch. And it had to have some influence by these wicked, marauding, criminals, and they had to have a part in it. So
I would ask you, Brian. I would ask you, where does your memory reside? Do you think your memory resides in your brain? Where is the root of consciousness? I'm not so sure consciousness resides in the brain.
Yeah, it's holographic. Well, it's like you access. It's like you can think of yourself as being located within yourself, and sometimes it's necessary to pack yourself back in, for purposes of doing mundane things, or to make yourself, not be in that state of mind so you can, sleep and do normal things. But no, it's holographic. It's not consciousness is not in a location. Now, seeing as how it's holographic, you can say, oh yes, well it's, this is are you saying where memory is, or where memory is, where consciousness is? It's in all places. Now, there's actually no center. There's no actual center to it. It's not centered in me. So everything is the center of it, and the way we imagine it can create a positive one. Can create a positive one, a healthy one, a flourishing one, a growing one, a beginning to repair, beginning to heal one, and all this stuff. And this can happen, if people intend it. And the problem is, what I've noticed is that people have more interest in protecting their positions, protecting their assets. This is our asset. This person is our asset, so we can't compromise her or him. So we're protecting them, so we can't let the truth out. Well, the truth has to be let out in not maybe in a public forum, but in a certain way to the interested party, because that's the only way the healing is going to begin. Okay. So healing for a larger thing than just people's personal lives, or people's embarrassment, or people's potential whatever, okay, larger than that, okay? And it's already known to me for a large part, so I'm not the one to worry about, knowing something, So, in order to keep that contained, what would you do with that information? Or let's say there's two people, what would you do with those two people? In order to keep that contained. Just think about that. But, I'm imagining something positive and productive. I'm trying to. All right? Anything else?
Well, that was kind of a statement.
Yeah, I believe from my remote viewing work, I've kind of come to the conclusion, we try to figure out, how does this work? Well, what's happening here? I think consciousness is a dimension, and I think, this is just my own opinion, I think the human brain is something of a filter. Okay, let's say that we are spiritual beings, that our true essence is an expansive consciousness that's part of the greater consciousness, and that we are coming into this physical reality, into this 3D physical reality for an experience and a learning and growth, then our brain would necessarily be a filter to filter out that greater consciousness, to focus us on the here and now. So I think the human brain is a filter, and maybe we're not supposed to remote view. I've actually considered that. Like, maybe that's our true essence, that our true spirituality is that we're part of this greater consciousness, and of course we know everything. But we come here to this three-dimensional reality to have this experience and to escape that and to focus our awareness so that we can learn these individual lessons. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's something I consider as a result of.
I'll tell you, Dick, you've definitely helped me kind of get a greater understanding, not just for remote viewing, but I think the physics and mechanics of this reality. And I brought up the concept of intention earlier, and when you talked about the setting up the simulated dam and all that, the simulated city and all that, I think what you actually did is, by creating this image, this intention in your mind, you created a waveform that was representative of this. And I think that most, you talk about the conscious brain and the subconscious and the superconscious. Well, you haven't talked about the superconscious, but I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And I can see now that this reality and things that we perceive as reality can all be represented as a waveform in this higher level of conscious, kind of like a string theory or a soft matter, if you will. So I can see how this the psychic connection and the mental connection and the subconscious connection to all this does involve a sine wave or a waveform representative of this intention.
You would love to talk with my instructor, Glenn Wheaton, because that's his explanation, is that it's propagated by waveforms. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, they have, I'm not well versed in the electromagnetic spectrum, X-rays and visible light and sound waves that a dog can hear, and we're within this very narrow range, human hearing ability and human sight, and the visible wavelength of life is a very narrow band. So, like, what's beyond 1 megahertz? What's below 0 megahertz? Well, the scale apparently just keeps going. It's this unlimited scale, and we're in this very narrow frequency.
Well, let me share something with you, Dick. I'm of the belief that there is a second spectrum, or at least one that runs parallel to the electromagnetic spectrum, which encompasses everything that we perceive in our reality right now, and that is the scalar wave spectrum. And so there have been some very interesting physicists, quantum physicist types that have discussed this, that said it is completely opposite. So I think that most of what we perceive happening in this higher level of reality, this higher density, that I like to call it, and most of what we perceive as functioning in the spiritual world or the psychic world is actually scalar phenomena that is parallel but separate from this physical reality, which is represented by our electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah. I've never gotten too much into the physics of the thing. I've always, as a remote viewer, I've been more like a rat in a maze. Like, I know if I go 2 steps this way and turn right, and then 3 steps and turn left, and then go this way, there'll be cheese there. And for me, the cheese is the feedback of the target. So I know the ways to sit down and the steps I need to take to put my consciousness into a way that I can communicate with my subconscious and get target data. And all of these greater issues I really have only come to recently. It's like, man, I'll never understand. How will I ever understand how this works? Where consciousness resides? What's the physics of the thing? But it's interesting to ponder.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, I want to remind everybody again that now is the time to join us if you'd like. The call-in number is 347-688-2902. And I know there's quite a few of you out there in the chat room that do have our Skype connection, so please feel free to join us. Now is the time. Wow. Anything else, Dick, that you want to share?
Well, let me talk a little bit about the thing I did with Hitomi, not to hawk my video too much, but this gets into consciousness. Okay. So I gave this Japanese woman this target that is that if you look up the Large Hadron Collider over in CERN, Switzerland, it's this huge electronic round end plate with all these wires and magnets. It's actually the largest scientific bit of machinery ever built by human beings. And just on the gross gestalt of the physicality of the thing, it's visually quite striking and interesting. And I thought, well, would she be able to draw that thing and view that and show the tunnels under the super collider, and how would she depict these subatomic particles colliding? So she starts working this thing, and she draws. Okay, she says this is a place with a lot of scientific equipment. There's tunnels, and there's people running cables and doing intense scientific equipment. They have hard hats on. There's a scientist who's overseeing it, and he's concerned about the theories and the equations. And she draws this building with a tank outside of it, and I had never seen that as the tasker. It was something I didn't know. And later I got her session, and she drew the grounds of this place perfectly. There's this, it looks like a water tank, but it's one of their early, scientific things they had. But she had drawn that perfectly. She drew the tunnel. She drew the piping. She drew the people in the hard hats that worked down in the tunnel. So she described the physical location perfectly. And then she starts getting into, well, there's these little like lights they're like tubules of light that are having mini explosions or something. And she drew the exact colors. She got colored pens, and she depicted the picture that they showed that was the actual computer-generated depiction of the collision. And then she said, like, I'm inside this. She said it was a three-dimensional place with these particles, and they started communicating with her. And she said it was like beautiful orchestral music, and she just describes this realm of consciousness. See, what they were looking at the Higgs boson when they created this particle was they were looking at how can energy become matter? How does energy coalesce into physical matter? That's the ultimate question they were looking at the super collider. And Hitomi, at the end of her session, before she was given feedback, she looked up at me and she said, they need to study consciousness, otherwise they'll never get it. And I said, what? She says, I said, wait, let me turn the camera on. And she's still groggy from the session, and I didn't have a microphone on her. It was kind of bad audio, but she just looks up wide-eyed and says, well, they need to study consciousness, otherwise they'll never understand that. And that's the kind of high point of this video. You can see her talking about this a little bit at the RVI Videos website. There's a trailer there, but that does get into the what is maybe scientists have often wondered how they say that there was inert matter. How did life evolve on Earth? We had or elements that were inert, and then they formed chemical compounds that were somehow struck by lightning or a lightning hit or sunlight, and then they evolved into organic compounds, and then somehow they became a single cell, and the single cells became multiple cells, and somehow became sentient. Maybe that's,
Dick,
that's backwards.
I'm sorry. Real quick, I just want to, say something real quick before I forget, but it was after the Philadelphia experiment that Tesla said that science will essentially, unless they learn to embrace metaphysics, they're never going to be able to go any further forward. I want to welcome our second caller, Prometheus, a.k.a. JP.
Hello.
Hey, JP. How you doing?
I'm very well. How are you, Stephen?
Good. Welcome.
And Dick, it's great to hear you. Great to speak to you. I've only seen the clip of you in the video, the Courtney Brown announcement video thing. But I'm fascinated by the pyramid remote view. That's my kind of because it was the emotion that you had when you were doing it. It's very different from a lot of others that have been, it was the awe that you were feeling. Could you kind of take us back there and give us some idea about what the color, the feel of the ceremony, and about when was it, and was there a Sphinx there, and was it Giza, and were there other pyramids, and a million other questions. I'm sorry, Dick.
Well, let me talk about my state of mind while I'm doing that. I had done a paper and pencil session. When you sit down in the form of remote viewing that I practice, you sit down and you're in beta consciousness, which is the same consciousness that you and I are in right now, fully alert and awake. And when I start doing a remote viewing session, it's almost like working a crossword puzzle for which there are no clues and there's no form. You're just getting brief impressions. You're probing for a sound or a smell or a taste, and you're writing these down as fast as you can. So you're very much in an alert beta consciousness. You work for about 20, 30 minutes doing that, and gradually it's like when you read a book, when you first sit down, you're very aware of where did I leave off? And you're aware of being there holding the book and you're turning the pages. And after a while, you get caught up in the story and you're not conscious of turning the pages, or if you're on a Kindle, making the page advance. You're just caught up in the story. So 30, 40 minutes into the session, I'm not thinking about what the target is. I'm just getting data. But I'm getting a little more alpha consciousness, which is daydreaming, where I'm caught up in I know that there's a pyramid type shape, but I didn't call it the pyramids, and there's people there, and they seem really small next to that, and then let me look again, and I close my eyes, and I kind of go to this place, and I go, wow, there's like a light show in the sky. After I got that basic data, I turned the camera on, and I stood there. And what I did, when you're on camera with a light on, you're not very much in the conducive, remote viewing state. It takes a while to work yourself up to it. So there's a few minutes there, and I've got the raw tape, and I may put my own video out of both Daz and me, all the raw, Courtney just took the highlights. So I'm there on camera for 40 minutes. So I'm there and I'm just drawing this stuff from memory from the pages that I did, and then slowly I get sucked into it, and then you get into the flow, and all of a sudden the data starts coming to you, and that's when you get excited. You almost can't talk fast enough because it doesn't have real meaning to you. It's just coming to you from somewhere else. It's just these thoughts popping into your brain, and then you look and you see a flash of something like, oh, there was light. Oh, there were a lot of people. Oh, this looked new. And then I close my eyes, and I'm able to look for 10 seconds, but it's like looking through a lens smeared with Vaseline, and the contrast is too low. Like, you just barely see it. And I go, oh, I get this sense of very geometric, these manicured lawns, and gardens, and inlaid stonework, and that kind of thing. So just ideas and little brief clips, and you're just trying to keep up with the flow of data and put it down on the board. So did that answer that question? You have any other questions, JP? I hope I'm answering that. I'm just trying to go back to something I did over a year ago.
But it was just the feeling of it that you had this sense of the awe of it, and it's like, the impressiveness of it.
Well, here's
the
feeling that I got.
And all that stuff. Go on, please.
Here's what I learned from it. I never was into the pyramid. I'm not a Egyptologist, and I thought, okay, the pyramids are these interesting big piles of stone. Like, who piled all these stones there? But I never really I never really investigated the pyramids. When I did so many targets on this, and there were peripheral targets, like what was the mining operation, who was in charge, why did they do it, all that kind of thing. I had done like 7 sessions, and when I got the feedback, I go, oh, it was the pyramid. That was the target, the Great Pyramids? Like, oh. And I looked at my work, and I said, oh, there was one moment where I said, this is like the pyramids. I go, I'd forgotten that.
Karen, that was you.
Yeah, so then I went back and I reviewed the tape. And I looked at it and said, wow, I was describing this whole scene. And what I remembered from that was, it seems to me that they didn't just pile up a big pile of rocks and then walk away from it. There was some point in time when they finished where they had to have some celebration, where people came from far and wide to, like, hey, this is the big party, like, here's the thing. And my sense of it was that there was some type of energy being generated that looked like a light show, that there was like, almost, my description of it was like the northern lights coming off the pyramid. So I sensed something very charged and energetic. And there's one point in the video where I said, is this being generated or is it being tapped into? And in that moment, the answer came to me is like, they're tapping into this energy, and it has something to do with lines on the earth.
All right, so that's another interesting aspect of this this talent that you have.
Yeah.
Is that
and it's what's interesting. Yeah. What's interesting to me was those words and phrases and thoughts and visions came out of me working completely blind. It wasn't like, no one said, oh, the pyramid's interesting, go look at the pyramid. No, it was just these 4 random letters. And from that, I got that. And it was more meaningful to me after my work was all done to go back and look at it and look at the record of my video. Then now I know what and that's what that session was. Now I go back and look at what I did, and oh, look at what I was saying. That's interesting. You understand that? Because when you're working blind, you just don't have an appreciation for it. You're just trying to get information out that's coming from your subconscious.
Hey guys, I got to jump in here. JP, pardon me. I want to welcome our another caller that just joined us, Karen McDonald. Go ahead and turn off your mute, Karen. Don't go away, JP. I know you've got lots of questions.
Good question, Karen, JP. That's interesting to hear your reaction to that. I appreciate it.
Okay, Karen, here you go. What would you like to say?
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to thank everyone for being there. You guys are just absolutely awesome. It's a pleasure as well to listen to you, Dick. And I just wanted to thank you for your patience and your understanding. And as a clan mother, we really appreciate what you're doing. Salamat Jah. So we're up here in Kaslo, and I just wanted to thank you for all you guys have been doing, because we'll be off to the Stargate for that project here shortly in about 3 weeks. So we really want to thank you for all your support. I've been gardening and shaking and taking care of everything as best we can here. And the piece is coming, and we'll be doing everything here by the great law of gifting. And so just thanks. I really appreciate everything you're doing. I was just a little bit, when we're looking at some of the remote viewing for the Kaslo area here, which is north of Nelson, is that we know that there's a set of dams and rivers around us. And so that's kind of a concern when the Revelstoke, Mica, and some of these dams will come flowing down and, look at possibly flooding out the Nelson area. But we're right in between. So I was just going to see if you've got some insight into that and anything, advice for me going to the Stargate project out there. It's going to be a hopeful situation in that interior. So thanks again.
Yeah. I'm not really in the prediction business. As a remote viewer, you've got to work blind, so it's difficult to, I can't just task myself and say, well, what's going to happen tomorrow at this location? That's not remote viewing. That's not possible. I'd never claim I could do that. Now, having said that, I have had some anomalies happen in my remote viewing. On March 10th, or was it March 11th, 4 years ago, March 11th, 2011, I was working a validation target for someone. So I said, okay, I'm going to work a target. And it was about midday in Hawaii. I sat down at my desk, and I have the day off. I'm going to remote view this target. So I start doing the target, and it was like TZNW-LVCQ. Okay, I'm going to look at that. I look, and I see a landform. It looks kind of like a mountain. I go, okay. I close my eyes again. I probe. Okay, this is like desert, barren, rock, sand, sagebrush. And I said, okay, this is pretty static. This is like, okay, it's this landform out in the desert that's kind of mountainous. It's hilly. And I go, why is somebody giving me this target? Well, I continue on. And I go, there's got to be something else here. I kind of got bored with that. And I worked for about 45 minutes. And at one point, I suddenly saw this building that was square. And it had like a square window, and there was smoke coming out of it. So I said, okay, what's this? So I draw this building. I draw the smoke coming out of the window. And then I get containment vessel, radioactive. And then I got there's surging water. Everybody's really concerned with this water level keeps rising. And then there's something really poisonous that's spreading horribly, and they're the containment isn't right. And so I drew that, and I set that aside. And on CNN, somebody called me and said, hey, look on CNN, there's this big earthquake in Japan. So I did that. The target that I was working was Shipwreck Rock. I think it's in Arizona someplace. It's this very distinct rock mountain landform with a distinct shape. And that was the target that I was supposed to be working, was this rock in the desert. And I had drawn that early on. But then I got this stuff kept coming to me about the containment vessel, the building on fire, and the water coming in, everything. And somebody said, hey, this Japan just had a very bad tsunami. And I looked, and I watched the tsunami. And the sirens went off in Hawaii, and it was a big deal, and the news had to cover it. And I wasn't working at that point, but I watched the coverage. So I forgot about my session. And then a few days later, it was about 3 days later after the tsunami coverage, they said, well, there's been a problem at the Fukushima plant. They may have, they're trying to get coolant to it or something. And this picture came on CNN of a square building with smoke coming out of it. And I have this. I can post this. And it looked just like what I had seen. I went back and I got my session. And I looked at it and I thought, gee, I drew that Fukushima place. I never knew that. I always thought nuclear reactors had that 3 Mile Island, like that concave, hourglass shape. And I looked at this, wow, I drew that. And then they said, yeah, there was a radiation release.
Well,
and
they only do those when they're away from water. Those are the big cooling towers. They do those when they're inland, yeah.
So I had drawn Fukushima about 4 hours before it happened. And here's what I think happened. When you put your consciousness out into that greater field of consciousness, and my target was, LVQ, whatever that was, it was Shipwreck Rock. Well, I went and saw that, But over there in consciousness was like, hey, look over here, this is going to happen. And I was drawn to that. We have done some experiments where we try to remote view future events, but in terms of making predictions, that's difficult, and it all has to be done blind. I would never, like, somebody ask me, well, what's the stock market going to do tomorrow, or what's going to be the outcome of this or that. You can't do it with any conscious knowledge of it. It's got to be blind.
Okay. You can't remote view the lottery headquarters or whatever, huh?
Well, actually, I'm working on the lottery. I got one number and I was one off on 4 others. I can take a lottery card and I can look and see splotches where the winning numbers will be, but there's so many numbers I don't get them exact. We're working on that. I hopefully someday will. I know a remote viewer who won $72,000 in a lottery a couple times. I won't say his name, but we're working on that. And if I win it, I will donate a lot of money to good
Revolution
causes.
Radio? Revolution Radio?
Sure, I'll fund your operation.
All right.
That's a promise. You can record this and hold me to
you
it.
Guys, you guys heard it here. It's with this. The show will be on YouTube in 24 hours, so it'll be there forever.
Wouldn't that be fun to
have?
It would be fun to have a lot of money and to do good with it, to like fund reality and good people.
Oh my gosh.
It would be a good fantasy. I've never really I don't have to worry about money. I mean, I make an okay living. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, and it's enabled me to do remote viewing without worrying about having to cash in on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a great position to be in. You don't have to sell your magic to survive. That's wonderful.
That's the way it should be. Yeah.
Anybody else wants to join us? Now is the time. We're getting down to the end of the show. 347-688-2902. JP, do you have something else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. A supplementary question. Dick, there is a body of research, and I'll actually give you the link to that. It's an abstract of this that talks about the influence of sidereal time, or actually the position of the galactic center at times of psychic thing. Is this something that you've verified empirically, or have you just heard about it, or do you run with it?
I've heard about that. I've read the research. I always do important remote viewing targets at 1330 sidereal time. I have actually some of these pyramid projects. I got up at, well, maybe not the pyramid, some other things I've done for Courtney Brown. I have actually set my alarm and gotten up at 4 a.m. because that's the best time to remote view. And I'll explain for the listeners that aren't familiar with sidereal time. Sidereal time is cosmic time. It's how can I best, okay, at 1330 sidereal time, where you are on Earth, like, okay, I'm in Hawaii right now. I'm in these islands in the middle of the Pacific. 1330 sidereal time right now is about midnight tonight. I keep track of it because I may do a target tonight at midnight. At midnight, my location on Earth, the Hawaiian Islands, the bulk of the Earth is shielded from the center of the galaxy. So you have the center of the Milky Way galaxy is this black hole that puts out a tremendous amount of radio frequency and electromagnetic noise. There's this like noise is the enemy of remote viewing. So at that moment at 1330, the Earth is turned in such a way so that Hawaii is the farthest away from the center of the galaxy. The Earth is shielding Hawaii, where I am, from that noise of the galaxy. I'm in the shadow of that noise. And there's a certain time, and they've done research that psychic ability and remote viewing ability is 900 times greater. So I think I do better at 1330 sidereal. I know some military units built Faraday cages, so it would always be 1330 sidereal. They shield you from the electromagnetic noise.
Okay, guys.
So yes, I'm a believer. That's a great question, JP.
All right, I need to bring in our next caller. Area code 609. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Vincent, and I'm calling from southern New Jersey.
How you doing?
I just want to go back to your little experimental target where you created the scene with the dam and the town, underneath it and that whole thing. And this gets into the whole nature of consciousness that you spoke about earlier, like what is consciousness? Does it reside in the brain? And you had all these remote viewers that hit that target. And I was saying to myself, this could actually be a real place in some, and this is far out, in some alternative reality that we just have not actuated in what we call our reality, and that your imagination linked into it and all these remote viewers linked into it with you.
Well, okay. It's even stranger than that. Let me tell you how strange this is, because...
Oh, I love strange.
Okay. I made this dam, and I entrained it. I made an entrainment. So as I looked at my dam every day, I, in my mind, made a web camera on a cell phone tower right overlooking the dam that had a daily picture. And every day, in my mind's eye, I looked at the dam. As the viewers were working this, I spent 6 months every day looking at that dam and seeing what was happening so that it would reflect in their work. As I watched that, I also watched the U.S. stock market. I tasked that target in late 2007, early 2008, and what I wanted to reflect is if the U.S. stock, if the dam collapses, if people see that dam crumbling, and in my mind there was some cracks in the dam, it had to have some repair work done. If the viewers would see that dam collapsing, that would reflect the U.S. stock market. The U.S. stock market would totally collapse, and trading would cease on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So I wanted what the viewers to describe to be reflected in what was happening at the dam. And all of the viewers described, they didn't say anything about the stock market. None of them got any New York data, no stock market, no financial data, but they did say downward movement, plunging, sudden downward. Based on my work with that, and I've presented this at a scientific conference, I sold off my 401k in the summer of 2008. When the financial collapse hit, I didn't lose a thing.
See, and this is where my question was actually directed. So like quantum entrainment, and I don't even want to go into that. That's such a milieu of, probabilities. But what I was really saying was that in some other alternative reality, and I know this is far out for a lot of people, but this is just how I see the whole thing. In some other probable reality, all that was actually occurring. And see, I believe that in our imaginations,
Yes, you're right. It was occurring strong enough. I put that into the greater consciousness. I maintained it. Now, if you tried to remote view that today, it doesn't exist because I haven't serviced it. I haven't thought about that. I haven't kept it going in consciousness. But yes, in consciousness, that dam existed enough so that 10 different remote viewers could remote view it successfully. So it did exist.
Okay, but in another sense, if in fact it is a probable reality, then the reality that contains it continued on. That, you know, whatever catastrophe occurred, people had to recover from it. You know, that world had to go on. You know, maybe it was even something, you know, more to do with an extinction level event. I'm just, you know, speculating what kinds of things. I think it would be interesting to somehow set up a new target that carried that original target forward into, you know, a probable evolving of the circumstances. And I know that's just so far out, but well, I'm telling you, when you were relating that story, that just grabbed my imagination, and I was there. I was looking at that dam, you know, I mean, it was just a mind blower for me. And I can tell you, I've played with, studying remote viewing. I'm 65 years old. You know, maybe someday I'll get to do that, but I've played with the idea that because, I've had, you know, esoteric experiences where I have seen things from, you know, past lives. It doesn't matter however you want to explain it. You know, I've been told by psychics that I'm psychic. I get a lot of precognitive kinds of things that, you know, eventually I see them transpire. And I think what you guys do is on a level that you don't appreciate because you're doing it. You know, you're so involved in keeping yourself removed from external influences that you don't even see how much, you know, how deeply involved in probable realities you are. And
yeah, the best remote viewer would be kept in a dim dungeon under red light and not allowed to watch any news or interact. I mean, seriously, if you put me in a, please don't, you know, but if you have
I've been
put me in a
solitary
dungeon,
confinement, so I can relate to what you're saying.
Hey guys, I gotta jump in here, Dick. Sorry,
Okay,
caller.
Steven,
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We're down to
good discussion. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Good night.
We're down to the last few minutes, and we just had another caller, area code 310. You're gonna have to keep it real brief because we're almost at the end of the show. But what's your name?
Sure, I can do that. My name's Mark. How you guys doing tonight?
Great, go for it.
Good. Hey, anyway, you were talking about late in the morning. Well, I went to sleep last night. It was I got to bed, say 3:30. I couldn't get to sleep right away, and what it was I was just like, you know, I call it tomahawk, just like, you know, you see how they cruise, and it was like I could just like zero in. It was amazing. Like it was focusing just on this one little spot, and it was just I was like flying. My mind, I could actually see the surface. I was right above the ground, as it were, you know, 100, 200 feet off the ground, but I was just like focusing in between all these. You know, I know it's not around where I live or nothing. It's somewhere foreign anyway. But anyway, yeah, I saw it. I just like zeroed in. I was focusing in, you know, and I was trying to figure it out. But you know,
that state between sleep and awake is a kickoff of a lot of interesting brain states where you can have a lot of interesting experiences like that. If you could put a remote viewing target ID, tape it to your ceiling or put it next to your bed, and when you wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning and then you roll over and you go back to sleep, if you could focus on that ID as you go back to sleep, you would surprise yourself. You might be flying over it and watching it. That's kind of spontaneous.
What's ID?
Well, you need a target. If I gave you it's an ID. We talked about this earlier, but it identifies the target without telling you what it is. Like if I want you to remote view the Grand Canyon, and I gave it an ID like CDR4. Okay, you just concentrate on CDR4. What's that? And you're half asleep. You should go to the Grand Canyon. So.
Okay. He's like, okay, I get you. In other words, post it as a attachment, like
you need to encode the target in such a way that the viewer doesn't have any conscious idea of what it is. It's just like giving it an address or a code.
I understand. It's kind of like shorthand. Like girls do shorthand. They breathe it and they have it
the
all.
girls
come
up sexist. It's like court stenographers are all women, right?
Well, there's a few males that are left. A couple. I'm not. My wife is, and there's a couple guys that are still hanging in there.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Listen, guys, we're down to the last 3 minutes, so I got to kind of jump in here and take over. Yeah. We're not going to really have any time for any more questions.
Guys, good night. Bye.
Thanks for calling. Okay, real quick before I finish everything up here, Dick, is there any information that you want to give out real quickly? What you've got coming up in the future? Ways people can contact you? Anything you want to share?
The IRVA, the International Remote Viewing Association. If you look up on the internet, IRVA conference. So I is in India, or I is in international, R is in remote, V is in viewing, A is in association. IRVA. It's a nonprofit organization with military remote viewers and scientists that advanced remote viewing. And they have a conference in Las Vegas every year. This year it's going to be, I think, the second week of June. And Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild will be doing a presentation for the last year and a half. We've been trying to see if we can.
Sorry, Tick. That's it.
Okay.
IRVA. Show's over.
IRVA.org, IRVA conference. You'll learn more. And you can go
everybody. Thank you very much, Dick. Thank you, all the listeners. Thank you, everybody in chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prometheus, Karen, Sean Bell, everybody. Join me at the Major Tom's show immediately after this in Studio A, and we will have the Syria guys. So stick around, and I will be right back on the air with Major Tom. Don't go away. Good night, all. Adios. Good night.